corner, it's good riding road. Country bass could be easy. Kicking up dust until I vote. Drywood bass could fires, good years.
This country boy finds himself in Nashville, Tennessee this weekend. I put on the suit to meet Joel Salatin at the Rogue Food Conference just south of here in Lewisburg. This is their second or third Rogue Food Conference. We're going to talk about freedom for food, and maybe I can get Joel to sit down for an interview. From Tennessee.
Requires somebody to get involved. And I think my takeaway so far from this Road Food 5 is I'm challenged, I'm convicted by not going to those political funds. The beginning of her journey. What did it start with? I decided to become a stay-at-home mom. That's a revolutionary thing. All of a sudden, we've had these big black swan events, the invasion of Ukraine, COVID, black swan, empty store shelves. And guess who is free? Those of us who said, we'll still milk the cow, grow the vegetables, know our farmer, be in the kitchen, cook from scratch, can tomatoes. You know the tomatoes have a conference 1 week before frost.
Hello everybody, we're here with Joel Salatin at the Rogue Food Conference in beautiful Lewisburg, Tennessee. Joel is a hero of the food liberty movement. He's been the founder of Polyface Farms in Pennsylvania, Virginia. Longtime author for the Stockman Grass Farmer and several of his own books. Travels the world now, educating and speaking on the virtues of food and liberty. Thanks for joining me today, Joel. What is Rogue Food Conference all about? Why did you start it?
Well, we started it because if anybody knows our story, we've had many battles with we call the food police, and it's gotten much worse over the years. And I just realized that there comes a time when regulation becomes so overbearing that instead of sitting around here trying to, okay, how do we comply? You know, let me coach you on how to comply, how to get the license, how to comply with the regulation, whatever. There comes a point where you say, you know what? Hang the compliance. Let's just build a different universe and opt out.
A parallel society.
A parallel universe. Very much like the homeschoolers did. You know, they tried to hold the public schools to account. I mean, back in the 60s, and then it got worse and worse, and then the private schools started, and that was a help, but it still had something missing. And then you had the whole homeschool thing was just let's just completely build a parallel universe. And so our slogan here is circumvention, not compliance.
I like it. And we've got probably, what is there, 200 or 300 attendees today?
Yeah, about 250, I think.
And this is the third?
This is the fifth one. This is the fifth one, and the first one that sold out way early, a long time ago, and there's been ticket scalpers trying to get in. So the next one we're planning to do at our farm in Virginia, May 12th and 13th in the spring, and we're planning, right now it looks like we're going to have somewhere between 6 and 8 elected politicians there, sitting congressmen, sitting delegates and senators from around the country.
That's really great to see the actual politicians coming.
The actual policy makers coming to actually get this understanding, and for us to know that there's a need there that hasn't bowed to Baal too. That's good.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're and at our place we're able to handle up to 400. So we're hoping to really let that be a that gets you where people come and say, wow, this is this has got some legs to it. You know, it's pretty exciting.
I think you're really making a difference, and I'm honored that you'd speak with me and take a little bit of time, because you've even been on Joe Rogan's show a couple of times now, isn't it? Mm-hmm. What's it like talking to him?
He's a guy like you and I. You know, he just has a great gift, and he's a real thoughtful interviewer, totally focused, no notes.
Yeah, he just wings it.
He wings it, but he's totally engaged. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like he's never looking at a clock either. You know, he's not watching a clock or anything. But wonderful guy, very interesting, and obviously extremely talented at what he does.
It's been fun to watch the guests that he has on, because
Sure.
they're really the non-mainstream guys like you.
Right.
You know, different doctors throughout the COVID pandemic and stuff, and people that are willing to say things that will go against the norm and possibly have consequences and troubles for them outside of that. You know, that's why I think it's so important that we do events like this, and we gather together with like-minded people and show that strength is there in numbers.
Well, you know, it's when you're a maverick, you know, unorthodox, it's lonely out there. You know, your family thinks you're crazy, your friends think you're crazy, you know, people in your social groups think you're crazy. Of course, now, you know, you get censored, you get badgered, you get, if you do a blog, you get hate mail. If you do a podcast, you get, you know, and so it's really, really critical that people come and commiserate, fellowship, and be encouraged by, it's a bigger undercurrent than you think, and that's good.
We're talking about solutions too. You know, one thing that we talked a lot about today are PMAs, private member associations. I know that's something you're learning about for your farm too, and I think one of the key things to understand about that is we got to stop asking for permission from government, and we have to understand that we've got a higher calling, we've got a higher authority, and that's your creator or whatever you believe in, that gives you, you know, those divine rights as a human. So I think that's one of the key understandings is we've been trained through our public education system that government is the supreme being in some way.
Yeah, and in fact, well, you know, John Taylor Gatto, who wrote you know, Dumbing Us Down, you know, really captured this. He was, you know, New York State Teacher of the Year for a couple of years, and then got out of the system because he just saw it was so corrupt. But he would take his students down, you know, down Madison Avenue and you know, do things completely out of the classroom. And you know, one of his most profound thoughts, I think, in the book, struck me, was that in the institutional school system, you learn that the only thing worth learning is what somebody else thinks is worth learning. And if you're interested
in, don't question it.
Right, and don't question it. And if you're in history class and the bell rings for math class, well, now you can no longer be interested in history. You have to be interested in math, and you just switch your. And as he describes it, I mean, I was in that system, and you know, you don't realize what's happening to you. I mean, just like, you know, the average person doesn't realize when we talk about you know, not being able to get food of your choice. Well, I go to Walmart and Costco and look at all the choice. You know, what are you talking about? But
more than any pharaoh of Egypt or king of England ever had access
to. Absolutely. but and that's the hardest messaging part of this whole thing, is to bring people to an understanding of what you can't get. So try to get, you know, at Kroger's, can you get raw milk? Can you get Aunt Matilda's chicken pot pie? Can you get, you know, you can go down this list. Can you get neighbor Mac's homemade pepperoni and bologna? You know, and so when you start down that path of true, authentic, artisanal culinary options, there's not much at the supermarket. And so, but to describe that, to help people to understand what are you missing, what are you not getting.
Where's the food with actual nutrition?
Yeah, that's right. And as the average person with our, you know, full supermarket shelves doesn't have an understanding of, oh, I'm missing something.
Right, and that's the thing we were talking a little bit about last night was one thing for farmers that are trying to sell healthy, clean food is the frustration you run into when you run into that consumer that doesn't seem to care. And they're a weight on the healthcare system, and inflation and our taxes going to supplement that. But I shared with you that I'm a recent convert to understanding at a higher level the truth of what's happened in this country. Just a couple of years ago in the last election, I voted for Joe Biden, and it wasn't until they tried to force me to get the jab that I started researching, actually digging into, has this been tested? What's in it? Who's going to be liable if I get hurt?
Right.
And those simple surface level questions opened up a whole world of, wow, nobody's asking these questions and challenging the authorities that say.
Right.
So what advice do you have to other maybe young people that are confused about the reality because of the mainstream propaganda machine that is just overwhelming?
Yeah, well, it is, and I would simply encourage people to realize that if you look back through history, the orthodox narrative is usually wrong. The orthodox narrative is usually, if you can just posit that for a moment, the orthodox narrative is usually wrong. We would say the mainstream media. We would say there's any number of the official government report, the official White House press briefing of whatever. Name your thing. The official Orthodox position is probably wrong, and if the average person can just embrace a questioning spirit toward the official narrative,
skepticism.
Healthy skepticism. We'd be in a different ball game.
I think so. And it doesn't take a lot with the internet. I think it's one of the greatest tools we have, is so we can share our message. It can be used for evil. It can be consume your time and waste your day.
Sure.
But it can also be a powerful way to connect.
Absolutely. The internet has absolutely democratized information like no medium in history has ever done. I mean, more than the printing press, more than anything, and this whole censorship and what Elon Musk has discovered at Twitter.
That's been fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's mind blowing, and this is not partisan as much as it's ideological, and so. Yeah, the credentialed orthodoxy on almost any narrative is not right. I remember reading at one of my uncle's places years ago. He was reading a book. It just struck my interest, and it was written by 6 Nazi generals after World War II. Okay. So they wrote this book about what was going through their mind during the war.
Yeah, that would be an interesting perspective.
Well, I thought that was so I started reading, and to the person, they knew Germany was lost long before Berlin fell. Okay? But they had been so conditioned to believe that if they surrendered their troops, so these are generals, they're not colonels, they're generals, okay? That if they surrendered their battalion to the Allied forces were just going to shoot them. That's what they believed.
Right, they had been indoctrinated.
Yeah, they'd been indoctrinated to believe if you surrender to those guys, they're just going to shoot you. And so these guys said, well, we don't have any choice. We've got to continue fighting, do the best we can, because they had their soldiers' best interests at mind, and they said, well, we have a better chance of surviving then if we keep fighting than if we surrender.
Sure.
And those kinds of things come out kind of after the history books get written. That's the kind of stuff. And so there are a lot of those kinds of things.
And we need to look at those experiences to try and understand how people get into those mentalities. You know, like another World War II story is like the townspeople outside of Auschwitz. They knew what was going on just a couple miles outside of town, but they didn't do anything about it. So when the U.S. troops came and liberated those people, they made the townspeople go and actually clean up that concentration camp and haul out the bodies. You know, and that's, I think, something that we could very easily fall into today. It's just burying our heads in the sand and ignoring some of the evils that are happening around us.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that have happened in the name of righteous indignation. I mean, I'm thinking, for example, prohibition. That's such a powerful one, you know. I'm not a big drinker, but you know, at that time, that whole prohibition movement created societal and jurisdictional precedent that the government could tell you what you could and couldn't ingest. That was the first time.
And it's built
Yeah,
from
yeah.
there.
I mean, think about it. This was. I mean, watch all your Western movies, right, with John Wayne and Kevin Costner or whatever. You know, and there's always the snake oil salesmen, you know, the hucksters and all this stuff. And
that's our pharmaceutical company today.
Yeah. And so here they were at that time, but nobody tried to. There was no FDA. There was no jurisdiction. If you could put it in a bottle, there was no labeling requirement. It was just a free for all, you know, and so
you had to take responsibility for your own health.
Exactly. So then you come to prohibition, and suddenly, the government does have the right to tell me what I can and cannot ingest. Well, then you have now the snake oil salesmen are suddenly we gotta control them. We've got to control.
Beginning.
And then of course that all moved into the drug wars and marijuana. And you know, I mean, Jefferson and Washington, you know, a lot of the colonial income was hemp for fiber, you know, and the fact that now the U.S.
Well, didn't they say every farmer had to have so many hemp seeds before they could get their land or something?
Yeah. There was some thing about that, and so now the fact that there is no rope manufactured in the U.S., it's all manufactured elsewhere because we can't grow hemp.
Usually made of plastic.
Yeah. It's just symptomatic of this kind of. I'm going to be righteously indignant. I want a solution, and the truth is that the most disempowering thing that a citizen can do is ask for a government solution to a problem.
I agree.
That's the most disempowering thing you can do. There are a lot of things. I mean, goodness, 1906, Upton Sinclair, the jungle, you know, brought on the Food Safety and Inspection Service in 1906. You know, when 50% of the meat was produced by, what was it? I think seven companies, and that was considered monopoly. 7 companies controlled 50% of the American meat supply. Today, a century after the government got involved, now,
much worse.
4 companies control 85%.
We've got a lot more
and we
people.
consider that free market, you know. And so the fact that when Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle, there could have been all sorts of AAA, Underwriters Lab, private certifications. There could have been, you know, membership organizations with their own criteria. We'll inspect the slaughterhouse, put our stamp on the meat, you know, to prove, you know, that it's good. It could all have been done in the private sector. Could have all been done in the private sector, but instead we got a government agency that now makes it illegal for me to butcher a chicken and sell it to you at church.
It's so powerful how deeply instilled it is that we think we need to ask for that permission. You know, and I'm hearing that today too from a lot of the attendees, especially the ones that came from California. They're, okay, in order to do this thing in the private domain, what forms do I have to fill out? That's not the point. The point is you don't have to.
That's exactly right. We have become such a ask permission society. When I speak and I tell our story, you know, people constantly ask, is that legal? You know, do you have to get permission, all that stuff? And you know, when we started butchering chickens in the backyard and selling them to neighbors, back in the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s, I confess, it never occurred to me that that could be illegal. I mean, it never occurred to me.
Right.
These are my chickens.
Right.
My neighbors want a chicken. Sure, I'll butcher it for you. You know, I mean, it seems so simple. And then to whatever, 10 years later, when the government finally caught up with us, I guess, or somebody, to learn that all that time this had been illegal, really? It was just nuts. I remember when it struck me, how naive could I be? This could actually be illegal.
Somewhere along the way, we lost the basic understanding of, Jesus said, love God and love one another, and we've got some basic commandments to follow so that we don't hurt each other, but beyond that, we're here to live free.
Yeah, well, it's thorny. I'll tell you, COVID has probably been the most thorny one for the libertarian mindset, because the libertarian says, do whatever you want as long as your fist doesn't hit my nose, right? That's kind of the saying, your fist doesn't hit my nose. But if I really believe that your non-masking or non-vaxxing is going to kill me, your hand has hit my nose when you express your freedom. And that's
the theory.
That's the theory. That's a really thorny one. I mean, it's similar to me. For example, my conventional farming neighbors think that since I don't vaccinate my cows, they're going to get sick.
Well, why are they vaccinating their cattle? What's the point of that if they're going to be the ones that are getting sick? Because people aren't reasonable. But anyway, my point is that so we don't vaccinate. So now a blackbird is going to come and take one of our diseases to the neighbors. They're going to lose their farm because I was negligent. That's where it gets dicey. We want this your fist hitting my nose to be really precise and measurable, and simple. It's not that simple.
But it's not that simple.
It's nature and the complexity of the world.
Right.
It's our hubris to think that we've got it all figured out.
Yeah.
And we don't trust in nature's systems.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, thank you, Joel. I think I've taken enough of your time today.
Oh.
Appreciate it. I think we could talk the rest of the day if I was so lucky. But thank you for everything you're doing, for throwing this conference, and for continuing to spread the good word.
Great. Thank you, Jason. It's great to be with you. Thank you.